Hello, confidants. It's me, Kelsey, Darragh, the host of Confidently Insecure, the podcast where we're absolutely sure we don't know everything. I am walking around my apartment because if I go into my office into the podcast studio, you're going to just see fellow BuzzFeeder / friend / editor of the documentary, Stephen Cantor, editing our trailer. How are you doing, Stephen? This poor boy is being worked to the max, to the brim, because our trailer for our documentary drops today, hopefully, if we make it on time. So I figured a good episode for this week in order to remind y'all what we're doing this about and what it's for, because you are the confidants, getting the scoop ahead of time, is to replay the episode that started this all 5 years ago. If you haven't been a confidant for that long, maybe you haven't even heard this episode before, maybe because it's been 5 years, you have forgotten what this was all about. But this is an episode about Marley Liss and her journey through the criminal justice system in choosing restorative justice to resolve her sexual assault crime instead of a punitive model. And hopefully this will come out in the morning, and then the trailer will drop in the afternoon. And I can't wait for you guys to see it. And bear with me as the premiere is now literally 1 month away. We are selling tickets starting today, and you can actually get the discounted version of the ticket today for only a week. So for the next 7 days, you can buy the screening ticket for $10. And then me and Marley are doing a live Q&A after the screening called like an after party. And if you want to buy a ticket for that, you can also add it on. But yeah, we in grind mode, baby. We are just at the max of post-production that it could possibly be. All for a great cause, of course, and for a project that is important and necessary. And I watched, obviously, this episode back when we were editing the doc, and it's just so funny, like how much hasn't changed and how much has. And even just hearing myself and watching myself as a interviewer and how that led to me being a filmmaker and a documentary one, because I love hearing people's stories. I love being a conduit of information. And I think you guys need a refresher on that story. So enjoy this episode. Thanks for bearing with me as we get through this premiere. It's the coolest, biggest thing I've done in my life so far. And I'm really excited for you guys to see it in exactly a month. Holy shit. So we'll see you next week, confidants. Bye.
I love what you put in your email where you're like, some other identity type words you're welcome to use is 25 years old, queer, Canadian, Jewish. All of that is very important for me.
Well, yeah, some people are like sweet. Some people are like, we don't care about that.
No, I want like all the verbiage and nouns to introduce our guests. And then, okay, so like, I guess I can start. And like, I want to also put this in the beginning is like, why am I so scared to talk about somebody else's trauma? Like, why am I so nervous?
Wow. Can I be so honest? Also, I appreciate the realness. I totally listened to your podcast episode of like you sharing about emotional
yes.
before this because I was nervous, and then I was like, no, I need to like humanize you and your story and just like get on the same page in that way. And I just like, I really appreciate you. And I was like,
oh my God. Are you kidding? I feel like, especially with something like this, where it's like two women talking to each other. I've always said like the reason why I do this podcast is because I feel such a sense of control, but then the content that I'm always promoting or discussing makes me feel very out of control. So like, for instance, a conversation like this, right? Like, obviously we want to put all the trigger warnings out there that this episode does deal with. Like, I'm even scared to say the R word. Why? Why am I scared?
It's but I think it's really, I appreciate realness and like, true for everyone listening.
Yeah. Like, hello. Okay. We just need to say it. This episode deals with rape, sexual assault. There's some mention of suicide, suicidal ideation, mental health. Like, okay, we've got that out of the way. Trigger warnings, all the trigger warnings. So now we can just talk. Okay, you guys, I want to introduce my guest for this week. I actually got an email from you, and it was like the header that like just captured me, where you said, I think it was like, why I decided to spend 8 hours with my rapist instead of going to court. And I was like, what the fuck? So you guys, this is Marley Liss. She is a women's embodiment coach, an author of a gorge book, international retreat facilitator, and the executive director of the Rehumanize movement. And we'll get into what that is and why you founded the organization with your mother, whose name is Barbie, which like amazing. So your sexual assault case became the first, one of the first in North America to conclude with restorative justice, which is what this episode is all about. Restorative justice. So Marley, my first question simply is, what the fuck is restorative justice?
Good question. Thank you so much for having me. And
Oh my God, an honor.
Yay. What is restorative justice? So ironically, like I just learned about restorative justice last year, or just over a year ago, which is when I put this all in motion to make this a thing for my own case. So I'm not claiming to be a restorative justice expert.
None of us are.
Basically, it's an alternative to the punitive system. So instead of focusing on punishing the perpetrator, focused on the harm that was caused and repairing and addressing that harm.
Ooh. See, that we're ripping off Band-Aids right away. Like, I feel like that's what restorative justice is. And if you Google it, because that's the first thing I did, it gives kind of like a controversial take, I guess you could say. I know you did an article with BuzzFeed News. Shout out to Lauren. We'll put that article below. In her article, she states, although it's based in centuries-old practices cobbled together from various traditions, restorative justice is still seen as a radical and controversial alternative to traditional crime and punishment. So I guess we can just get right into it, right? So I guess my first question is like, why the fuck would anyone ever want to do restorative justice, especially when it comes to rape and sexual assault?
Yeah, I think that people are really confused about that question. And I think there's a huge perception that survivors would never, ever want it. And yet, after all these articles came out about my own story, I received emails from like hundreds, maybe thousands of survivors saying, I want this, or I wish I knew about this. And I think there's so many reasons that this is better for us in some cases, not all cases, but it's really a survivor-centered process.
Oof.
So this is like, and honestly, I would say like if our alternative is court, like the punitive court, I would straight up say that court is abusive.
Oof. It's scary as fuck. Like that was one of my questions. First of all, what's the Crown? Because you're Canadian.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Crown equals prosecutor.
Okay. Just for all the Americans out there, that's what that means. So like, let's go back to the beginning. And you and I kind of emailed off thread. And again, I want to like put out all the trigger warnings and hopefully that I can use the right verbiage. And please forgive me if I'm, if I don't get the verbiage right, and feel free to please correct me. But you and I had emailed off thread a little bit about how much you want to talk about your case and your assault. And I guess for the people listening, it would be good just to kind of hear in your own words how you describe what happened to you in that case.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So in 2016, I was raped by a stranger, and it was like a really undeniably horrible rape. I think all rapes are probably undeniably horrible. This lasted about 4 hours, and it was like really weird. Part of what was really weird like after I said no a bunch of times, I just froze and he just kept going. But every so often he would be like, this is so messed up. I'm so sorry.
Wow.
And then he would continue.
Mm.
And it was so confusing. Like that blew my brain in half because I was just like, wait, are you feeling like some level of empathy while you're doing this and then continuing, but also feeling empathy? Like what?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, he like covered my mouth at certain points and yeah, it was really, I wrestled with a lot of self-blame because I was drunk. I know that's such a big thing for women, and that's such a thing that gets used against us in court and all that crap. But yeah, that's basically what that experience was.
Right. And I feel like that's important to note because we will kind of dive in later about sort of like this drinking culture and again, like victim shaming and victim blaming and, toxic masculinity and all of that. But going back to your case specifically, so I read in one of the articles that right after the assault, or am I supposed to be saying alleged assault? That's the other question I had for later. I mean, like, it is what it is, but like legally, am I supposed to say alleged? I don't give a shit. It's my podcast, right?
Yeah, like personally, I am not a fan of that word because I'm just like, that word is like steeped in skepticism.
It just negates everything I'm about to say.
No, so I don't say it, and I prefer when people don't say it.
Okay, good.
Get when people do.
Good to know. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that like with this BuzzFeed News article, it was probably different because they have like, fucking fancy lawyers and all that shit that tell them what to do. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay, so after the assault, you went and did a rape kit. And I, read about the questions you had to endure while doing that process and how maybe that could have been the start of you going like, wait a minute, I'm doing all the things that I'm told I'm supposed to be doing, yet why am I already feeling blamed even after I just went through this traumatic event? So can you maybe talk a little bit about that process of the rape kit and the questions that you received?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most horrible things was that like, and this is quite common apparently, like the nurses were understaffed, so I had to wait 24 hours and they said don't shower, don't change, and like I had literal like semen on me, and they were like just wait. So like just this list of reasons that people don't report because you have to do so much, and this is why I'm like, these are all reasons of why I feel restorative justice is more ideal or more kind to certain. So the actual nurse who did my rape kit was like really lovely, but it was a really horrible process. And then basically they said to me, do you want to report or not? And I was kind of like, well, I don't want nothing. I don't want to just like go home and watch Netflix and like, how could I even?
Right.
So I was like, I guess I'll report. And that's like the police statement part is probably where you saw those questions because they're so horrible, and it's constantly like trying to disprove you or to confuse you enough to like throw off your narrative, and it's so fresh, and I'm like still hungover and trying.
Yeah, I was just saying, like being hungover, just the anxiety that comes with that alone, coupled with, I'm assuming, male police officers, and their whole job is to investigate if a crime was committed. And I don't really know that like how much empathy or emotion is allowed to be involved in that job when like in that situation. And for you to not have that comfort, like my first idea is like, why don't they include like a therapist or someone or a counselor in those sorts of situations at a hospital? But of course, I mean, like, God, that's a dream world, right?
Yeah. And I remember like now that you say that, I'm like, one of the questions they asked me was literally how many thrusts per minute? Yeah.
In like, what fucking world?
Yeah. who knows that in the most like consensual experience? Who knows that? Like,
and like, why does that matter if it's faster or slower? Does that change the situation? No. I mean, so like I mentioned, you went through the regular routine questions of like how much had you had to drink, what were you wearing, just all the shit that like absolutely does not matter to what the end result is. And I read that so you had the choice to be able to move forward with and tell me if I'm getting this word right, but like with a trial, with a prosecution, with a case. You were like, they were like, yes, you were raped and now we can move on.
No, they were not.
Okay.
You were raped. They were like, there's enough evidence for us to move on to trial to see if you were raped.
Wow.
And I also feel like it's important to say, I really want to write an article on how the punitive trial is the least consensual thing in the world, because it's like you say yes, you're like, okay, I'm going to report. So you say yes, but you have no idea what you're saying yes to. Like I then walked down a 3-year path of trials and all this stuff, and there's no support given to you. It might be different in the States, but
probably not.
It's probably not like the survivor gets no defense, no legal support, is completely in the dark about what's going on. And I was told things like, you know, Marley, like you have to answer every question they ask you on the stand, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you, or you're seen as non-cooperative and you could be charged.
And that's like threatening you. It's like no fucking one. I mean, these are the absolute horror stories that we hear, and I think we don't ever have the chance to personalize them, which is like why I'm so grateful you reached out, because you only hear about this shit, right? You never imagine actually going through it yourself. And I have to imagine at that point, you know, it's, you know, my first question was, why the fuck would you do restorative justice? But I feel like even to this point, which is just the entryway into the punitive system, you're already like, fuck this. Like, no wonder restorative justice sounds like such a better option. And I love what you said about it being so survivor centered. And I'm sorry if I flip it between victim and survivor. I'm working on that. I wanted to ask about the rape kit with restorative justice, with that process specifically to a sexual assault or harassment or whatever RJ allows restorative justice. Does that process matter in doing restorative justice? Do you need a certain amount of evidence to move forward with something like that?
That's a really good question. And I think that's something that's really important to say is like, to my knowledge, this is the first time this has happened through the legal system in North America.
Wow. Holy shit. No pressure, girl.
Right. So, something my lawyer said, because I ended up seeking out a lawyer, and keep in mind, like no one was telling me about restorative justice, which, side note, again, I'm not sure about the States, but it's in Victims' Bill of Rights in Canada that you're supposed to be informed about restorative justice right away. And I don't know anyone who has had that experience.
And so to even be talking about this being like the first, and you mentioned that you had never been given even the option of restorative justice, how did you hear about it and decide, like, you know what, fuck the traditional system, I'm gonna go the survivor centric route?
Yeah, so I did the punitive thing. And I want to say, side note too, like my focus the year after rape was not on like the justice outcome I was visioning. It was like, I need to survive. And it was very much like I was deeply, deeply depressed. And like, it was just like I would break out in hives all the time and just like shake. And it was really horrible. And I think I shared with you, like at one point I was thinking about taking my life. And I would say that going to punitive trial worsened any progress I had made significantly. So basically I did the preliminary trial, which is where they decide, is there enough evidence for us to go to like a legit cameras in the room trial?
Right.
So I was on the stand for like 5 hours. I didn't have, like my assailant was just like looking at the ground.
He was there?
Yeah, he was there. he's like looking at the ground. The defense is saying like the worst, like just again, like questions
Of
like
course.
for a minute, and how could he access that hole if you were lying in the position you said you were lying in? And
Had these people just never had sex before? I have to imagine that they're just like nuns or something. Like, if you want to make it happen, it's gonna happen. I don't know if they know
they're
that.
like curious and
Yeah. They're like there for themselves. They're like, okay, but the butthole, how does that work? And could you explain to us? We're just wondering, just for fun. And you were like, again, fuck this, I imagine.
Yeah, it was so horrible. And honestly, I was like, I like feel like I'm pretty badass and strong.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
But I was like, I remember I had sought out like an hour of free legal support at this like women's organization. And they were like, here, we're going to help you prepare for trial. And they asked me a test question and I did not have one word. They were like, can you describe what happened that night? And I was like, and I was like, I'm going to throw up on the stand. Like, I'm just going to throw up and then cry and then nothing's ever going to happen.
It's not worth it at that point.
Yeah. It's
you.
So brutal. Yeah.
And so this center you went to, were they the ones that kind of were like, or?
No one for like, I discovered it on my own. So basically after the preliminary trial, I was again, just like, I need to focus on my own healing because this has been a lot. And I kind of like denied that the whole process was still going. I just like pretended it wasn't happening. And then about a year later, so now it had been 3 years since.
Wow.
This was just last winter.
Right.
I was subpoenaed for the criminal trial. And at this point, I was like, I think I'm going to drop the charges because I don't want to do this anymore. And I remembered that I had met, like, this is so ridiculous. Like, I remembered I'd met a woman when I was traveling in Portugal, and she was from Germany, and she mentioned that sometimes they do it differently in Germany. And
wow.
I remembered her. and
wow.
And I want to say too that I didn't know about restorative justice at all, but I had said to some like close friends and like a therapist, I had said like, if this was my world, I wouldn't do this whole insane process. I would just meet with this human. I would like ask them all the questions I have because I had so many questions, and I would want to receive accountability and an apology and ownership, and I would want him to witness the grief he caused.
And I think that's a big, I hate to say like appealing part of restorative justice, but you mentioned like they do it differently elsewhere. And I had no idea about restorative justice until I read your email. I don't know if they do it all over the world. I don't know if it's something just in Canada or you know, you're the first, right? Like the fact that you really get to say what you want to say and do what you want to do. And it feels like, shouldn't that be how it is in all instances? I mean, the government shouldn't be in control of your healing, and you can only do so much outside of yourself, you know, outside of court. But once it's involved in the crown, that's just cool to say. It felt like you were then completely at the will of the government and what they wanted to do. It's like, where is your control in that whole situation? You have none. Versus restorative justice, which probably was founded by women, let's be honest. It really also focuses on humanizing the assaulter, right? Like they don't just become another number in a jailhouse where probably no education or healing is done. And yeah, so when you found out that this was an option, you had to make it so that the government, who was trying to do it this one way, would legally allow this other thing.
Yeah. So one thing just to clarify is like, this
Please.
is through the legal system for sexual violence.
Okay.
This happens all the time for like shoplifting and like youth crimes and that kind of like
imagine smaller, like maybe even like custody stuff, mediation, but this is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, when I reached out to her, she was like, oh, it's called restorative justice. And I was like, okay. So I started doing some research. I literally put in my Instagram story, has anyone heard of restorative justice?
Shut the fuck up. You're a full on like you're like a lawyer at this point. Give it the bar.
Story, yeah. And then someone responded, which got me connected with this amazing lawyer named Jeff Carolyn, and he's like, they connected me with him because he's written and like been a big advocate for restorative justice. So basically I reached out to him and I was like, I need support. And
oh, good for you for even just fucking being able to do that, period.
Thank you. Yeah. Right? So then we had this meeting that I feel like is probably the most badass moment of my life.
Tell me.
So first I met with the lawyer for like 10 minutes and I was just like, this is what I want. And he's like, okay, this is the game plan. We go, we meet with the prosecutor and we tell them what you want. And he's like, don't get your hopes up. Like you'll get shut down every single day asking for this. And which is real. And so a really like miraculous and important and like dramatic part of the story is that they were passing off my case from one crown to a different crown. So they were both in the room in order to like make that transition.
Wow.
Which
so like did they both have to agree to it?
Kind of. So this is why it's like dramatic because
the whole thing is dramatic. But this is where the music of like adds.
Yeah, this is where it gets kind of like TV, I feel. It's like basically I went in and I'm like kind of a hippie chick and I was like wearing a long red skirt and I had feathers in my hair, so they were probably like not taking me seriously at all. And basically I went in and so there were these two crowns and I said, I want to do restorative justice. And right away, one of the crowns was like, why are you scared of criminal trial? You're strong enough to do a criminal trial. We're going to do a criminal trial. Glad we had this talk. And my lawyer was like, I think Marley had like a different vision in mind. And then the other crown, who's named Kara, and she's now on our board of directors, and she's amazing. She was like, Marley, what's your dream vision for your justice outcome? And I'm like, that is
Thank you, woman in the room.
That was the first time since this rape happened that someone gave a shit about what I wanted.
Fucking fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck. 3 years. That was the first time someone in an official legal position fucking asked you what you wanted.
Yeah.
It literally gives me the chills. Like my armpit hair just grew like half an inch because I'm like enraged and emotional. I just started my period today, so shit is gonna oh my God, sisters.
Me too.
I'm all fucked up over here. I'm sweating. I'm a wreck. This story, I'm like, I've read all of the articles, but yet still I'm like, wow. Okay, so you're like, okay, wow, here's what I want.
Yeah, so I said what I wanted, and so Crown, who shall not be named, was like, and again, this is a really like, are you kidding me moment. She's like, you know, Marley, with the Me Too movement, people really want to see rapists locked up for a longer amount of time.
Oh,
I said to her, and this is my badass moment, I was like, so you're using the Me Too movement to silence my voice?
Sis. I'm snapping as hard as I fucking can into the microphone because that is insane. What ass backwards psychology of like, you should be a voice for, you know, but in a way you're doing something so radical and so revolutionary. You were really taking a chance on doing something opposite that would have even a strong, if not stronger outcome. Good for fucking you. So they agreed? They were like, okay, sis.
So then her other narrative, which I think is a lot of people's narrative, is like, oh, sweetie, like, don't you understand that rape is bad? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, out of everyone in this room, I definitely know that rape is bad. And again, my thing is like, I think that rape is so bad that we need to consider alternatives because what we're doing isn't working. Like sexual violence is one of the only areas of crime that like it has not dropped in the past 30 years, and recidivism, like people reoffending after incarceration, is so likely, and people usually get acquitted anyways.
So I had a stat here about just like the different, I mean, it's not so much different in Canada, but the police ultimately, it's estimated that only 5% of sexual assaults in Canada are reported to police. And of those, global investigation found that 20% are deemed unfounded, meaning police have decided a crime did not occur. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at these stats like, first of all, I may not even have a chance. You're telling me even though a crime was committed and I have enough evidence. And so for you to have so much empathy for the assaulter, I think is also where my brain is kind of like, I don't know that I would be able to do that. And that's probably something you get told a lot, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think like there's so much to that, but honestly, I'd say that my biggest drive in this was like when I was suicidal, I was like considering that because I didn't want to live in a world where we're dehumanizing each other like this. And so I was like, what world do I want to live in? Like I decided to keep living. So I was like, what world do I want to live in? And it's like, it's not one where I like dehumanize that person right back. Like it's one where that cycle of violence stops, because my belief is like, okay, what if he did go to jail? He would just like have a horrible time, be super exposed to so much more violence, sit in like immense shame probably, hopefully, and then get out a few years later and like be very, very likely to reoffend. And just like, when does this shit stop?
Yeah. Wow.
So to me, I was like, it's really about breaking this cycle of violence.
And so just in case we hadn't said it, what you were asking for was for the assaulter would have to do very intense weekly, monthly, daily, supervised, written about therapy. Like, can you tell me what exactly you wanted from this person rather than like the process, I guess?
Yeah, so I wanted him, I didn't have that specific a vision of it, but like I wanted to go to therapy, and I wanted it to be extensive. And my thing was like, I want him to heal whatever shit caused him to do this. Amen. And then I want us to do the restorative circle, which is that piece where we actually meet and like sit in a circle. And this is the process that we obviously had that lasted like 8 hours. Yeah.
And that, you know, to even, it's like a double-edged sword, because it's like you have the control, but you still have to go through now the emotional healing. Because I think what happens a lot of times is when people either, you know, their case is dismissed or they're not believed or they don't even go to report, is a lot of repression, a lot of disassociation, trauma that comes down later in the line. And so by you saying like, this is what I want to happen legally, be accounted for, we are actively and publicly choosing to show what emotional traumatic healing looks like between two people who society deems that are supposed to fucking hate each other. Or we get that beautiful news clipping of someone going, I forgive them. And it's like, it's so sensationalized, where this, I feel like, is so much harder, because I know another thing is people would say like restorative justice is going easy. Like, no, they should do jail. And it's like, anyone that listens to this podcast knows that that's not true, you know, by the fucked up justice system. And I'm sure it's just as crazy in Canada as it is in America. But exactly like you said, that nothing would get solved there. If not, it would get worse. And so tell me about the process of what that looked like, of knowing he was going to therapy and that you had this like big fucking circle thing coming up. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically it was like we left that meeting and then it was kind of like, okay, these crowns are essentially kind of like fighting for this case. And if one of them gets it, it'll happen. And if the other does, it won't. So it obviously did end up happening. And I just want to say too, like when I got the phone call and my lawyer was like, we got a yes, we're doing restorative justice. Honestly, that was the most beautiful moment in my life. That was the most healing moment of my life. Cause I like one of the biggest trauma losses for me was like voice. I was like, my voice does not matter. I can say no and nobody's gonna care. This was like, I just asked like the system to reroute itself for me, and I was heard, and that was so healing. And just to like know that there is this potential for him to actually change. And like, I don't know this person, but like I don't want someone to like
live like that
and to live like that and to like exactly. So it was like deeply, deeply, deeply healing. Basically, they were like, we got a yes for restorative justice. He's starting therapy right away. We will not do the circle unless he gets to a point where he can take full accountability.
Okay, but like hard stop, because I wrote this down and I like bolded it. And I was like, the fact that you had to wait till he was ready. I mean, I don't know that, again, like you were just a better, different person than I am, but like, how were you able to go like, I will wait until he is ready to do the circle? Because it wouldn't work, right? If he wasn't, you wouldn't get what you wanted or.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it wasn't really like, once he's ready, we'll have the circle. It was more like, the circle will happen like if he's willing to take accountability. But also it was like, the circle will happen when you're ready for it to happen, Marley. And I needed like 6 months. Like I call it like a celebration tour. Like I was actually, until about a month before the circle, when I got like very stressed and nervous and like 4 or 5, whatever, 6 months after I got that call, I was like in full celebration mode. Like I felt like this like like there's this like little girl in me who like stopped believing in magic and love when trauma happened. And then this was like, no, like anything you want to happen, like your dreams can come true. Like you can live in a healing world. Like, so I don't know. It was so deeply meaningful for me. And like, that's when I did my like Oregon, California adventure. And I was just so happy. And then about a month before, I was like, holy shit, like this is terrifying. And I think what's important to say is like, because someone might be like, oh, does that mean like restorative justice isn't good? And I'm like, at the end of the day, we're still talking about how to deal with rape.
Right.
So like, it's never gonna feel great. And in a completely ideal world, we don't have to talk about justice roots anyways, because it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of feels too like the punitive system is what it is. That's the standard. If we take a step back into survivor-centric healing, it feels like there's restorative justice. And if we're to take even a step back further, which hopefully is the world in which we're heading, is like, instead we're teaching boys how to not rape, right? But this feels like a huge fucking step towards, like you kind of said, like breaking the circle, right? And it's like, we do have to do the hard stuff in order, anything that's worth doing is hard, or whatever the fuck that quote is that people always get tattooed on them. But so, it must have all felt super worth it for you. Like as scary as it must have been, I imagine that, were you always kind of like the hippie girl, like, or was this kind of a transformation?
That's a good question. Like, okay, before this rape happened, I was living on an ashram for like 3 months. So
what is that?
Like a meditation center. And
oh, no way.
Like the divine feminine. And so
hell yeah.
Yeah, I was already in that, and I was studying social work too, and I'm
Mm.
sure that shaped a lot of my views for this.
Wow.
I was very aware of like the fact that rape happens within rape culture. It's not like a random bad seed kind of thing. It's more like this human has been taught since they were born that women are objects and that this is how he asserts his power, and like all these different messages. So I just felt like aware of that versus this like seed thing.
I was going to ask a little bit about that. I had written down, right now I'm finishing my book and I've been reading a lot about shame. This is actually the book. I just happen to have it right here. I have like a stack. I can't even. But it talks a lot about, you know, self-shame is never useful, right? Like the idea of where shame came from the beginning of time. It was a survival method. It was, you know, in the tribes, we look at the guy who's doing some stupid shit, is going to get everybody killed. So we shame him to protect the tribe. And it's like, that's where shame started from, even though it is not a, it's kind of like ingrained within us. For some reason, no one has to teach us shame. We just feel it. And in this case, right, like, is it useful here? Because they even have an example in the book of like, well, we do need shame to have, you know, people like child pedophiles or rapists. Like we have to have shame in order to stop that. And I wondered, you know, like they always say like good people can make bad mistakes. Like at what point do we say like, this is not a mistake we can forgive, or, you know, we do need to shame this behavior in a certain light? Because I feel like, is that just something that has to come on his own? Like we can't, I've asked 17 questions now at this point. I'll just let you respond.
No, I hear you. And like, I think that those are really good questions, because I think a lot of people, like like some of the comments I've gotten on these articles are like, you're a rape apologist, or like you've let this man walk free, like internet trolls, you know.
Sure. Very familiar with those.
I'm sure, yeah. But like, this was not a light and fluffy process for my assailant. This was like fucking terrifying for him. And I think a lot of people don't get that, because it's like he actually had to fully face and feel what he did. Whereas with incarceration, he's told right away, like even his defense lawyer is like, don't tell me what happened, here's your story. And then he goes to prison, like very unlikely, but if he does go to prison, he probably never tells anyone what he did, because people who cause sexual violence experience way more violence themselves in prison. So he would probably like never, ever, ever talk or think about what he did, or he would think about it and it would like consume him or whatever. But he'd never like friggin' reflect for a second on like, wait a second, right? And this was the opposite. Like this was like, look, this is Marley, this like human that you deeply hurt and violated. Like this is her mom. Like my mom and my sister were in the circle. And yeah, I'd love to talk about the actual circle, because yeah.
That was, you know, you're going right in the direction of my questions. It's like, you're like, fucking, let's go to the climax, right? Like, fuck, you go, this is the day of the circle. What the fuck are you thinking? What are you wearing? I'm like chills. I will try to be professional. Tell me about the day of the circle meeting.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's one thing, is like restorative justice is community oriented. So it acknowledges that other people were affected by this trauma, which I really appreciate. So, cause yeah, my mom's life was changed by this. And I was deeply affected by this. So they were both there. My lawyer, Kara, the Epic Crown attorney,
what a title.
My assailant, and a friend who he brought as a support person. And there were 2 mediators there. And I mean, every single piece of the process was like the most real contrast from court. Like, first of all, there was like so much like self-care, and there were like snack breaks, and like
Oh, fucking amazing.
Yeah. And restorative justice has indigenous roots. So
Right. I'm glad you brought that up.
sacred medicines. There was like an altar in the center of the circle to honor
Wow.
the roots.
Now, is that a Canadian thing because there's like indigenous people of Canada and is there in US, but like, is that something that we would also be able to introduce into restorative justice if it were to come into the US? Like, I feel like people don't think about the environment that you're in. Like, you want it to feel very safe. It can't be like a fucking glass room with like, you know, what you imagine a government building to feel like.
Right. Yeah. It felt so different.
Mm.
And there actually is like, there's some amazing restorative justice organizations in the States. They just don't deal with sexual violence as far as
Well, fuck.
And I think it's shifting, and hopefully, and this is why I share this story, or part of why I share it is because I'm like, hey, we need this, we want this, this helps. So
hey guys, I don't know if you want to listen to me, the survivor. Maybe I might have some ideas for you guys.
Right?
Wow. Yeah, they really should hire you. It's like Catch Me If You Can, where they hire Leonardo DiCaprio character at the end. So you make the room super safe. You make it, you know, respective of where the process came from.
Yeah. And they also met with each of us one-to-one beforehand, because there's 2 meetings, and they met with each of us beforehand, and they talked about like, what do you want out of this? What are your fears around this? And for me, my fear is like that he will just be a stone wall and will be like the least moved by this whole thing. And that will just be like wrong about all of this. And it was really like, I like to say like exceeded like beyond my expectations, but like in line with my dreams.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like he was really present, but I guess I'll kind of walk through it. So basically, one of the things they said was you have to greet everyone when you come into the space, and already that's like breaking all of the codes of the people.
Right.
Like put one here and never let them talk again, and that's justice. But yet, even like for anyone, not just restorative justice, like advocates and stuff, statistically, the number one need that survivors of sexual assault have is accountability.
Hey, motherfucking men.
Well, never, ever, ever get accountability in the way that the punitive system is set up.
Right.
So it's just like, what?
So you had to basically say hi to him.
Yeah, which was crazy. I remember like standing, I was so shaky. Like I was so shaky, and they put us on rolly chairs, and like I was like, this is a hazard, because I was like shaking.
Oh my God. That's comedic in a moment of drama in a movie.
Yeah, and like I ended up sitting on the floor because I was like, my body is shaking.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we had to greet everyone in whatever way felt true and good for us. And then we sat down, everyone wrote down this, like, it was like an icebreaker activity, like write down 3 values that you have, put them in the center. And then they asked us one question, the mediators. They said, what brought you here today? And that's all they asked. And that's what took us like 8 hours to respond to. Yeah.
And I want to step in and ask, because I read this, but we're obviously talking about it, that it said you had to sign an NDA that wouldn't talk about the person or their lawyer, and some of the stuff that was said in the meeting or afterwards, or can you explain that a little bit better for me?
Yeah, so I can talk about anything that happened in the meeting, but I'm not allowed to disclose any information that would like potentially reveal his identity.
Okay. How does that make you feel? Like, was that something that you knew from the beginning that was going to have to be part of it?
I feel okay with that. Like I'm like, it would just like destroy his life for his identity to be exposed in that way. but more than that, like it's just not really a need for me. Like I'm not really like the world needs to know who this person is. But I will say, like, in my dream world, because I'd like to put stuff out there, because you never know, like, he would actually share his story.
That's what I was gonna say, is like you two do this like traveling duo, world-changing fucking team thing.
Yeah, that's
not
like,
to be like, spoiler alert, everything worked out, but like that's where we're heading, right? It's like,
that's the stuff that goes on my like secret vision board.
right. So
yeah,
back to the meeting. I read that there felt like in the beginning a sense of he had not wanted to take accountability, and you stayed, which is pretty incredible, because I feel like if I felt any resistance from this person who had just gone through 6 fucking months of the whole point being to admit what the fuck you did, and then to have any kind of resistance, I don't think I could have. You must have had so much strength to be able to continue with that conversation.
Oh, thank you. I'm like, oh my gosh, if only you heard like a recording of my crying. That was
but like, hello.
Yeah, but I guess even before I say that, I want to say that I was the second person to talk after my sister, and that I spoke for like an hour at least, and it was like I really needed that. Like I really needed to say my piece.
Yeah.
Say my piece and to be heard, and like to like I was like, I need you to make eye contact with me while I say this.
Wow. Holy shit. And did he?
Yeah. He was like very present, and he would like get teary-eyed at certain points. Everyone was like very casual, and he wore a suit, and afterwards he was like, I was so nervous, I didn't know what to do. And yeah, so then when it got to him, that piece, it wasn't that he wasn't taking accountability, but it was that he was telling his story, and he actually apologized. He was like, I'm sorry for if I caused harm in the way I've shared my story. So there was like so many growth signs. And keep in mind, like, this is a stranger to me. I had met him during the assault and in court, and I didn't remember like his voice. I like Facebook stalked him once and saw a picture of him and his mom on Mother's Day, and he was like, love you, Mom, and I just like stared at it for hours. I actually saw him on Tinder once. I like threw my phone, and I was like, how are people who are charged with sexual assault on Tinder?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
You don't think about that. I mean, I did see a TikTok that, oh my God, I can't believe we bring up fucking TikTok right now. But I saw a TikTok yesterday that was like, you know, a video of a girl recording some guy's Facebook page that was like saying something about his mom. And it was like, when a guy you know is a piece of shit is trying to say to his mom how much he loves and respects women when she doesn't even know how much of a piece of shit. And she was just like going on and on and on. And I was like, yeah. And that kind of reminds me of it. Like, you know, it kind of goes back to that thing of like, can good people do bad things? Or are we seeing this person as a whole as a bad? Like, are we multifaceted? Like, I can't imagine what that must have felt like seeing him on Tinder. Holy shit.
Yeah, thank you. And I really love TikTok, so thank you.
Girl, we can exchange all day. Me and my sister and a couple other friends just have a thread going where we just send our favorites all day back and forth. But, wow. So I didn't even think about that in between time where you were kind of also discovering this person via social media and seeing the way that he must have like portrayed himself. And I mean, I have to imagine too that, or maybe I'm wrong, was any of this assault information in the public when you were going through the pretrial stuff?
Good question. I don't know. I don't really know.
Yeah. I imagine that the weight that he must have also been carrying, not that, I don't know, do I care? I don't know if I'm supposed to care, but like the weight that he was carrying must have also been like, the anticipation must have been fucking soul crushing.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll tell you like what his narrative was. So, and this is why I described it as like I turned to stone and cracked and died in the circle because it was this moment of like, holy shit, like, yeah, we were wrong. I was wrong. But he was basically saying that, and we speak about this all the time with survivors, where survivors repress a trauma, but he was like, I repressed this. So he was saying that right when I like ran out, he was like, oh, how strange that she like ran. And then, and it's messed up because you'll remember like he knew what he was doing. Because he kept saying like, this is so fucked up. I'm sorry. This is so messed up. But yeah, so he was like, I was confused. Something felt off. And then the police came and they charged me, and it was very, very scary. And this was kind of his narrative. And he's like, and I became suicidal because I was being charged. And I was confused and I didn't know what was going on. And he like shared about that, like wanting to take his life.
Wow.
And, yeah. And so this is quite like movie plot twist, like how the hell is this really happening moment as well, was he was like, I repressed it until someone very close to me, who is now, I like hesitate because there's like fear of not being believed because it's like kind of crazy.
Of course.
Yeah. But he was like, yeah, this person is now his girlfriend. And she came to him at that time and was like, I was sexually assaulted. And she told him, and the details were very similar, like being at a club and then getting in a car and just like a similar like, narrative. And she kept saying like, it's my fault. And he said to her, it wasn't your fault. And as he said that, he said it was like his memories unlocked from the night, and he remembered everything. And he remembered how messed up it was. And like, picture me, like I'm just sitting here on this like friggin' roller coaster. Wait, what?
Wow.
What? And then he like, and then he looked me in the eyes and he's like, I sexually assaulted you, and I'm so sorry. There's nothing I can do to take it back, but I hope being here today can help. And I honestly did not know how much I needed that. Like I literally physically felt like a knot untie in my stomach, and I just burst into tears. And it was like, honestly, like this like really deep relief, like this really, really deep. And just like, who gets that? Like no one gets that. And this is part of why I'm like such an advocate for this, because that was like the most deeply healing moment.
I can't even imagine. What I can understand is the advocacy that the passion and the fire that you must have after experiencing something so, you're gonna make me fucking cry my eyelash off. But the feeling of then wanting to say like, I want other people to have this, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing with your reformation and the project and the message you're trying to spread. And I mean, I feel like, of course, I know that the listeners are going to wonder, like, was there a point where you said, like, you forgave him? Like, is there any forgiveness involved here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when that happened, that was probably 4 hours into the circle. Oof. And then like another 4 hours. And they didn't say like, we're having an 8-hour circle. They were basically, this takes as long as it takes until you feel like satiated, like good. And I needed it to be 8 hours. And so that was like the first 4 hours was like purging grief.
Right.
And the second 4 hours was like bringing in so much healing. And it actually ended like quite joyfully. And like, because it was just such a deep, like, holy shit, we did this. Like, both of us almost took our lives probably around time. And instead we're here in this circle. And he even said at some points, like, he had clearly done like so much learning around consent and the patriarchy. And he was like using so much of that language and saying, oh, the therapist I worked with taught me about this. And I was like, oh my God, like praise. I'm like,
it worked.
This like, and yeah, like it was such a deep, like, holy shit, look at my therapist using all this like feminist language.
Right.
And so I did forgive him. I feel it's very important to share my definition of forgiveness.
Yes, absolutely.
So not on the same page with that. For me, forgiveness is entirely separate from justification, and forgiveness can exist alongside any emotion. So I could be like really mad and being forgiving.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's like it's what I actually like to say better than like I forgive you, because for me I'm like, that doesn't
sound so finite. It sounds like, okay, we closed the book and I forgive him. And it's like, no, that's not what this feels like.
What feels better for me is like, I have compassion for you.
Wow. Fuck.
Yeah. Like, I think that it just feels more true for me and more for me and more like empowering for me to be like, I have compassion for you.
In a space where you're told you shouldn't. And that's probably very empowering. I'm sure people too, like myself included, would want to know if you got the answer to why. Because I feel like that's a heavy one, right? Is like, blame it on the alcohol, blame it on the patriarchy. It's like, were you satisfied with the why question?
Yeah. So this is a little more of a complex response, because he didn't have a clear, like, well, I was sexually assaulted when I was young. And that is so common.
Yeah.
But that wasn't his narrative. And something just really like interesting was that, because it really did feel like unwinding the patriarchy with this part of it. And like the friend that he brought with him, like broke down sobbing at one point and was like, I've never cried in front of anyone. Like, I was in the military. My dad was in the military. Like, I've just never been a part of anything like this. Like, this is changing my life.
Wow.
And like, so that was really fucking powerful. And
shit.
And then you have them side by side, and then like him explaining, my assailant explaining, like, he was kind of like, I don't completely know why I did this. But he shared about like, it's like, I would call it like he internalized all of the patriarchal messaging that he's been taught since he was young. And he suppressed all of his emotions because he's a man since he was young. And eventually he just like drank a lot, and like all of that internalized, unhealed crap like expressed in this horrible way. And like, I'm not like, oh, that's okay then, but I'm like, I see it. Like he's been fed rape culture since birth, and then we're confused when men like, we're like, oh, catcalling's fine, but if you like non-consensually penetrate someone, like, what? Like, how could you by that? And it's like,
well, what? A, B leads to C, D.
Right? So I'm like, I actually think it's a pretty powerful example in that way, because it's like, this is a cultural thing. Like,
well, then let's dive into that about, drinking culture and consent and rape culture. Like, in an instance where two people are drinking, right? Like, I feel like it's so messy and so cloudy, because at what point does someone have to take responsibility for hurting another person?
Yeah.
I feel like it's so tricky when it comes to like, Amy Schumer has this like horrible but like very relatable joke that the one is like, every woman has been like a scotch raped, right? Like, we've all been through it. Everyone's had like an experience, and it makes you wonder about like And I think that's maybe why a lot of women don't report, is because they're like, you know, not only self-blaming and saying, I shouldn't have done this, this, and this. And I guess like my question is, at what point is there like something that happens where it becomes then non-consensual and someone else's fault? And I'm making air quotes, like fault. Is there like a,
ooh, that's such a
I
big.
know.
No, I think it's good. Like I've talked about this before, like now looking back with all the like education and perspective and stuff that I have, I see that like a lot of my high school, early college experiences were like that kind of blurry, around like, was it consensual? Was it like, you know, this kind of thing. And it is confusing. But I'm like, at the end of the day, like no means no and yes means yes. And like, I think what happened for me is I was complacent with so many like of those blurry experiences. But when this happened, where I was very clearly like, and we were not like friends drinking together and like whatever, it was more like all of a sudden he like pulled my pants down and I said, I'm practically unconscious right now. You definitely shouldn't touch me. And he said, but it still feels good, right? And I said, no. And then he continued and I'm just like, that's not consensual. And
it's a lot of no, right?
A lot of no. And if someone's passed out and they're not able to access words like yes or no, then it's definitely non-consensual.
Yeah, and I think the like overall like simplifying it, like making it simple stupid, is like if it's not an absolute very clear yes, it is a fucking definite no, period. Okay, well, I do have to ask the question that I'm sure everyone's wondering is, do you still talk to him? Are you guys friends? Is there like an ending to this? Before we dive into the rehumanize.
Cool. So yeah, I'd love to say like where the circle went, because it was like after that shit show moment of like, oh my God, and that like really intense like accountability moment. It did start to get like really, really, really healing, and like there was moments where he said like, you know, I do want to help stop sexual violence in the world, and like I don't drink at all anymore. It's like certain things like that, and that were really meaningful, like for him to be like, and I actually wish there was follow-up, like follow through, and a lot of restorative justice programs that are more implemented, like the shoplifting ones, they will have like, hey, you said you do this during the circle, like how are you now implementing that? These sounds are cool. And I said to him, this is another badass moment where I was like, you're not going to prison, so make meaning of this in the same way that I have. Your story is powerful too. Like people need to hear your story too. And he shared at one point that like, because I was like, no, I didn't even say like I'm gonna share about this, but oh, you know what it was? His friend was so hyped. Like his friend was so like his friend said, in my 24 years of life, in my 8 years of working, in my 4 years of school, I've never learned more than I have today. And you all need to share this with the world.
Wow.
This needs to be shared.
Wow.
And my assailant after that said, like, I would be really like happy or whatever if you did share this.
Wow.
And yeah, it was like, and the mediators said, like in those one-to-one meetings, they said, you'll see by the end of the day, everyone who's in that room will be connected in a way that you never ever imagine. And I was like, gross, I don't want to be connected. But I get it. Like after leaving that, I'm like, we just went through like the hardest frigging, like most roller coaster, most like miraculous healing moment of a thing. And there is this sense of like, we all went through something huge. And like on that note, like one of the things my sister said was, never met any of the people in this room other than me and my mom. She's like, I've never met any of you in my life, and yet you've like changed my life in such huge ways. And there is that sense of connection because of the NDA and the remnants of the punitive system, because we did like kind of a 180 from punitive to restorative. It's like, I don't think I'm allowed to reach out to him.
Interesting.
But I don't know if that's true, and if it was actually fully a restorative process, that wouldn't be true. So I kind of feel like this is a real, like, I want to say like to be continued.
No, I was going to say, I don't think I knew how fresh this was. Like, this is still very much like in the thick of it. And you talk about having like a follow-up meeting. Like, I definitely think that should be something that's considered in, you know, the advocacy of this, because, you know, he also probably still needs to process his ending of the beginning of the rest of how this is going to play out. I think maybe that like there is still hope that you guys could become this like tag team duo, like future world changer people, you know, it's definitely not over, which maybe like beautifully transitions us into your movement of the Rehumanize. I mean, what does the future look like? And tell us a little bit about that project.
Yeah, cool. So I always like the part where we like get to the present.
Yeah, or I mean, like, how the fuck you can't like dig into you can't, I mean, it would take 8 hours
to
really dive into it. So that's why I want like our confidants to know about your project, so that they can like, because fuck, I didn't even know this existed before. So I can only imagine like the hole that I could find on the internet or maybe lack thereof. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically after this happened, we were like, holy shit, like that was amazing and hard and everything. And also like Kara, Crown Attorney, was like, whoa, like, and her thing was like, she was so devastated by the way the system works. Like, she got into like prosecution because she wanted to help. She wanted to help survivors, and she was like, it's the worst thing, time and time and time again. So she was really amped up as well, and we decided to launch an organization for this that's really pretty much at our core level, we're focused on communicating to the masses that this exists.
Right.
We're focused on communicating why it exists. So really, like, that's our prime focus, because what I've learned is that there are tons of organizations who already mediate, not necessarily for sexual violence, but they already do mediations, and they would do mediations for sexual violence. But nobody knows about them. Like, because technically I could have experienced sexual assault and then called my local restorative justice agency and said, hey, I need your help, but how would I do that? So one of the things we want to be is a bridge between the masses and these organizations to say, hey, here's what you can do, here's how you can do it. And we want to shift like minds and hearts through workshops and awareness and education, because I also think storytelling is so powerful, and that's why I keep showing up and telling my story. And I think like bringing so many voices into this conversation of, look, these are all the survivors, different colors, different sizes, who do want this.
And that's what's most important, right? It's like, it all goes back to the revolutionary thing you said in the beginning of like, it really at the end of the day is about y'all's voice.
Yeah, thank you. So that's like our biggest thing. And then I think as well of like it's with the Victims' Bill of Rights thing, it's like it is in the legislation that should be an option, but nobody's offering it. And so we're like, why aren't they offering it? And they're not offering it because they're also humans who haven't learned about restorative justice, who are scared of like change. This really controversial. This is the, like, sometimes I'm just like, why am I walking the most controversial path ever. Like, how did this happen?
But like you've seen the other side, right? It's like you've walked through the light, and like this won't happen unless you're involved. Yeah, you have such a calling in a way.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels like that, and like it feels very deep, and yeah, I'm clearly like very passionate about it.
Well, what can confidants do to hear more, learn more? You know, I'm sure like I'll have all the links below, but like I want people to be able to like send this to a friend, like learn more, ask questions, like how do you get started? How does this get to the US? Like where do we even start with this?
Yeah, beautiful. So great question. I mean, like reach out to me as a human and tell me like why you want to, you know, what calls you towards this, what questions you have. But yeah, I think like go to our website, which is rehumanizemovement.com. People can volunteer, people can like get some educational resources through there. We're really, really, really new, so we're just building. And I also want to say that I do like healing and coaching work with women, and a lot of it is focused on healing sexuality, and a lot of the people I work with are through trauma, and so I'm very much available that way as well, and that would be my personal site, which is marleylist.com. And I offer like a lot of free resources. Like I have a free training that's coming up focused on like sexuality and healing. So that's really like that. I love that work. But yeah, we want all the voices on board, and we're slowly developing a storytelling platform. So yeah, just reach out.
This is so cool. I mean, I know I don't have to tell you anything you don't already know, but your story is so fucking powerful. And to be the first is like, you know, they always say like, do you want to be the first or do you want to be the best? And I'm always like, I want to be the first. Like your story and the fact that you have turned your pain into purpose. I mean, I hope, you know, sharing this on this podcast does something, ignites some people, teaches some people the education, just the fact that you're now dedicating your life to that and helping other people. Like, I feel so honored to meet you. And I really hope you keep me updated on like what happens with all of this and how we can help. And this is just such a beautiful thing. And I feel so lucky that you were able to come here and educate and allow us to be involved in your healing and your story. And you're just a bad bitch. You're just a bad bitch. Okay, so one more time, can you just let us know where people can follow you, where we can learn more, all of that?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yay! I'm so happy with.
Me too.
Know you, and it's also such a gift. Like I really, really, really deeply respect you for being able to tackle like such
same
topics. And so,
I know you are, but what am I? This is like I feel so recharged and re-energized. Like that's why I wanted this podcast to even exist, is just to grow and be able to learn and make mistakes. And yeah, thank you for saying that. But this isn't about me. This is about you.
I'm like, and we're menstruation sisters.
I know. I'm like, oh God, here we go. Cramps, emotions, crying. Here we go.
So our organization, people can find through rehumanizemovement.com. We are a nonprofit, so donations are always appreciated, and that will help us make impact.
Totally.
And my personal stuff, my healing work is marleylist.com. Yeah, you'll find everything there.
Marley, I don't want to say goodbye, but you're so amazing. And again, thank you for taking the time. We're going to be fun. So I'm not even going to say bye. I'm just going to say like, I'll talk to you later. And thank you so much again for being on the podcast. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.